From Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world, I'm David Gavri, and this is the Vegas Faces podcast, where we talk with Las Vegas locals about what it's really like to live in the City of Lights. Whether you're living in Vegas, moving to Vegas, or just visiting Vegas and looking for new adventures, together let's discover the hidden gems that make Sin City the most visited place on earth. Hey everybody, welcome to the Vegas Faces podcast, where we talk everything Vegas and what it's like to live in the entertainment capital of the world. I'm David Gavri. I'm a Las Vegas realtor with Realty One Group Summerlin. Shout out producer Paul behind the scenes, making us all look good. Today's topic is content creation. What are the secrets? What are we getting wrong? What do we need to do right now? With us today is Robert Condell, CEO of Creative Collective Media Marketing Agency. That's a tongue twister, but he's good for it. And also the producer of Las Vegas Pitch. When it comes to content creation, social media, getting all the right gear, Robert's the best person I know. So let's get right into it. Robert, welcome to Vegas Faces. You ready for this content creation seminar?
I love it. Here, man. Thanks, David.
So let's just start with people who want to get into content creation, but don't necessarily know how. They might think that it's so complicated. I got to get, thousands of dollars worth of cameras and equipment. Oh my God, this is too much to do. How do we get started?
That's a tough question. And I always bring it back to like sort of the gym analogy where just start with a small repetition, and it's about putting it in your calendar and just time blocking an hour of just even turning on your camera and just hitting record. Because honestly, I've been doing this for 20 years. I started at 23, 24. I'm 44 now. So I've been immersed in just creating content, video, editing, all that stuff. But I kind of just started by hitting record and just kind of fiddling around with anything. It's kind of like pretty much anything you do, you're not going to be great in the beginning. So like as cliche as that sounds, David, it's just about starting, right? I mean, it's a broad statement, but that's really it. Just put something in your calendar, 9 to 5. I'm going to practice hitting record, and then I'm just going to make a video. You don't even need to post it, and see what happens. It's about just getting your reps in.
Who do you think needs content creation? Because there's a lot of business owners that feel like, oh no, I don't need to do this. They feel like, oh, I already built my business without it, therefore I don't need it now. But why do you think content creation has become such a thing in this day and age?
Well, you and I are talking right now on video, right? So video gets your customer used to your face and your voice and your emotion. Voicemail can't do that. Text messages, of course, it can't do that because you don't hear tone, you don't feel, you don't see body movement and stuff like that. So video is that. I mean, it's the second best thing to in-person interaction. I still think in-person interaction beats video, but right now, content creation is important to get your brand out there for visibility and volume, because you need a lot of volume. Especially for business owners, you need volume of visibility. And so doing video gets that volume. And when I speak volume, your customer is watching you over and over and over and over and over and over before they do anything. They move forward in like the sales funnel or the purchase funnel.
And okay, you said just start, press record. Okay, yeah. Fine. To the person who has already done that, what kind of things are you seeing that they're getting wrong? Like, ooh, okay, I respect your consistency, but try this now.
I think people they don't be themselves. I think they look at something that they got to copy, and that's cool. Copying can get you started, but what you want to do is be able to get the reps in so that you feel natural and that you feel like you're actually a person behind the camera and you're not reading a script or you're not stiff. And that takes it's a habit to break. The professionalism, some people stiffen up, some people they're not natural. So I think the next step after repetition is getting your groove on, right? And getting a feel for it. Now you can play around. You like if you think about it in music or music, you learn the basics, you learn the fundamentals like composition, lighting, you turn it on. And now when you get better, you go, cool, now how do I step it up? Okay, let me be a little bit more animated my video takes. Let me practice hooks. So the hook is like the first 3 seconds. Let me really dive in research and topics. So it's just about like refining. So like if you go back to the gym analogy, you get your reps in, and then you start to build muscle, right? And then you start to play around, and then you actually, I think the last part of the equation is you have fun. When you start to have fun, that's when it starts to become better, like the content for the viewer to watch and the content for you to make. Because it's going to suck at first. It's going to be hard, like anything, right? Like if you were a realtor, it didn't come easy in the first year, right? Like you messed up, you probably wanted to quit. You're like, I don't know. You had to come back to your notes and figure out like you forgot certain things, and you're fumbling around. But like, well, what's that? Whatever, how many hours, like 10,000 hours to become a professional. So you got to put in those 10,000 hours with anything to be good.
Yeah, and like content, it's so weird because it's like most of the time you're just talking to a camera. Yes, you're talking to
Yeah.
people, but their people aren't necessarily in the room. So it can be kind of like when you're talking about people stiffening up, it's like weird because it's like, how do I be myself when I'm the only person in the room? Basically, being my natural self as if we're in the same room, even though we're not.
Yeah, it's a tough one because this is not a natural thing for us to speak to a camera. So that's why I said there's a lot of media training involved to what this is. Like even just sitting properly, a lot of people in people on the Zoom are just like chewing, or like it's all presentation. Everything, this 4 frames or whatever we're in, this frame is a presentation of what you want to accomplish. And if you look at it as a communication tool, like video is just a communication tool. What do I want to communicate in here, right? In this little thing. Now you've got my attention for half a second. Like, what am I going to communicate? So people need to understand it's not even about content. It's like, how am I going to communicate efficiently through this lens?
It seems so simple, but yet, like you said, with
Because
anything
it
else,
is. I think people complicate it, dude. Like
yeah, like
I think the biggest hurdle, honestly, is, I've coached hundreds of people. The biggest hurdle is self-image, and that's not a content thing. That is you got to go do some work. Maybe it's some therapy. Maybe you got to work on your body, or the way you look at yourself in your image and your perception. Like that isn't content. Those are self-image notes that you need to overcome to accept whatever you're looking at, because that is actually one of the biggest hurdles. Is like, I don't like how I look on camera, and that's totally acceptable, right? Like you can't hate on that. Like but you can't fix without the repetition. So you got to at least hit record. You don't even have to publish it. Just figure out and hit record and go, cool, what do I need to work on in the camera that I feel good communicating now my message? Because if once you start feeling good on camera, then the other stuff sort of falls into place, right? And that's where someone like me sometimes comes in with direction. Like my job as a director is to make this person feel really good, like, and direct them to the best version of themselves in the X amount of time, and sometimes with marketing videos, you only have like 30 minutes to make somebody feel good and get their message out, right? So we don't have the luxury of Hollywood, of post-production and pre-production, of months and months of rehearsals and acting classes. Like, and you think about that, like actors have to go to acting school and acting classes, and they practice in the mirror. So when these videos are just marketing and branding, and sort of like, for us as a business, this is a marketing tool, right? Like we're trying to get a branding thing going on. So you got to give yourself a little bit of grace and slack as far as like how good things are going to become. And I personally think it's about just being authentic, and that beats production. It's my opinion.
now you got me second guessing my background. And like when we put this background together, like producer Paul, he was like, dude, stop worrying about the plants. Like this plant over here. Like I was like,
No,
no, I gotta get the plant to look right and all this type of stuff. But it's like all that seems secondary because what really matters is whatever's truest to ourselves, whatever is most comfortable to ourselves. Like, yeah, you could put a bookshelf, but like, does this guy even read? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
if those are
but
books
think
that,
about that. But that's a different thing. You're talking about set design. So
okay,
that's okay. You're basically
okay,
talking about set design. That's fine. You can make your set. I just chose to have a black set, right?
yeah,
So it doesn't matter. Like, what do you want to communicate through this
okay.
image, right?
Do you think people get it too overly complicated, even with the set design? Because I feel like it
I
took us a
mean,
while just to
no,
get
because
where we are
no,
here.
no, yes. Because I mean, if you go in Hollywood, there's like teams for set designing. There's
Yeah.
teams for makeup. There's teams for all that stuff. So, I mean, if you're a one man show, like you're gonna have to kind of think about this. I wouldn't focus on it. That's not the important part. If you're too focused, if you're spending 2 hours on the set and then 0 hours on your content and research and your guests and your topics, then you're focusing your time on the wrong thing. And for business people, like time is money, and so if you're spending hours fixating on, a plant, that's not worth your time. You know what I'm saying?
100%,
Like
$100%.
you have to have a little bit of like reasonable you have to be reasonable a little bit on your time management, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What about like you were talking about how authenticity beats production, but like, is there something to be said about like something that's well edited, something that is color graded professionally, as opposed to just some shaky, I don't know, like as if they just did it on their phone type of look?
It really depends on like what your audience likes or and what you're trying to whatever your aesthetic vibe is. Like I have a client who has 250,000 followers, Brandon from Vegas. He shoots everything on his phone and he's built a following that way. In fact, the when he hires me to do the high produced videos, his phone videos still outperform that, you know? I mean, it's like what it kind of doesn't really matter for social media purposes. If we're talking about Hollywood and just production and Netflix shows. I mean, dude, there's people that shoot on iPhones on Netflix now. You know, it's like the technology is so advanced in 2024 that it really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, are you shooting on a cell phone
No, I mean this is our MacBook, and
webcam?
yeah, I
Dude,
mean
that looks as good as mine. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like how good is it that I mean, and I'm a trained eye. I couldn't tell if you didn't tell me.
you're being sweet, you're being nice, Robert. Rip us apart. Tell us what we're doing wrong.
Dude, you're not doing anything wrong. You have your own podcast that you're producing. You have me as a guest. You have a producer. Like you have it way better than most people, David.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, I mean, we're literally just, like you said, we started it. The first one was the worst one. They always say the first is your worst, but just keep going from there. And every single time we do it, it's like, okay, we learned something new. We hit a hurdle, we hit an obstacle. Oh, how do we do that? How do we figure this out? And then we overcome. And then it's just every single time is something new, something to learn. So
It is
I kind
really
of,
the process is a learning process, and people have to understand that. Like, I never know what I'm doing when I show up. I'll tell you that. I've just trained my entire brain to be like improv. It's like comedy, right?
mhm.
You have your set sort of rules that you sort of go to. You have your go to if you have your go-tos basically, right? You have like if I'm in this situation, I'm gonna go here. If the crowd is dead, I'm gonna do this. So it's the same thing with content. Like you start getting these tools once you're like, once you have a PhD like me already.
And now, who do you think are like people that people should be following and looking up to? Like Gary V always comes to mind, like when it comes to advice on social media and content and all that kind of stuff. Like, do you watch those kinds of guys? Like, who do you think
Yeah,
is
I
good?
like a lot of motivational and leadership stuff because to me it's like all about mental. It's all the mentality, right? And then there's a few channels that I watch. There's a local company called Think Media. They're huge. Think Media is one of the biggest YouTube companies out there. Sean Cannell. I
They're in
think I
Vegas,
learned
aren't
from.
they?
Yeah, they're in Vegas. They're one of the biggest YouTube teams out there. It was just Sean Cannell doing it at first, just like this. He was just doing it on his laptop, and then now he's like a millionaire. He's got a whole team, and they're one of the biggest. Like they throw like 1,000 thousand people seminars here in Caesar Palace and all that stuff. But yeah, they're great. I would say go with Think Media. They're always a good source of just content creation. They cover it. They cover from beginner to advanced.
Okay. Those are definitely one of the guys that we've watched a lot. In fact, producer Paul has like done some of their seminars and things like that. And we're always like nerding out on like, oh yeah, like Think Media says this. We should we should try this
Yeah,
on our
that's
next
where I
episode.
learned a lot of this stuff too. Because I was originally an editor. So I've only done videography professionally when I started my company in 2018. But I was a professional video editor from 2003 till 2016. So I've been doing
On,
editing more.
what do you think, like on the editing side? Because I find that to
Mhm.
be the most tedious. I find that to be, if anyone's going to quit or maybe find an excuse to no longer do this, I feel like it's the editing part. So what are you
It's a tough.
seeing? But like, is it getting easier? Is it getting more user friendly? Are there ways for
I mean,
beginners
it's
or
hard.
is okay?
I would always say if you have the funds to outsource it because I mean, especially if you're a business, right? Like if you're a business and your primary goal is to sell real estate. Your best time is to create the content and send it out to edit. Like I would do that unless you like it, unless you want to put in the hours to learn to edit. So it's a hard question to answer. I mean, I've just been in it so long. It's hard for me to disassociate the skill set. But I do see kids doing it on their phone. And like, I think the next generation are going to be like phone editors and really good with like CapCut and TikTok and built in apps on Instagram. And so you don't need a fancy laptop anymore, at least for the next generation. But for like, let's say you, David, your best time is to make marketing material like this, get guests, talk to people. And then I think outsourcing the edit may be, I mean, it's because if you're going to try to learn a whole new skill set and you got to just put in the hours to get better for editing. There's no way around it. Right.
Yeah, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, like we only have so much time on our hands to try to do everything. I get
Yeah.
that.
And I would actually even think about it this way. If you want to save on editing, do post-production and go, look, here are like 10 shots we're going to film. And that's what we're filming. So you don't overshoot,
Okay.
So I think it's like one of those things where like, look, this is just going to be a one shot. It's locked off and there's no edits. We're going live. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like, you can't shoot yourself in the foot. And I've been a victim of that. Like owning a media company, we've shot like 20 terabytes worth of footage that's just sitting in my.
It
You
gets to
don't
be a
want to go
lot.
down
There's
that. You don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
yeah, yeah. No, I've been there for real estate too. It's like, oh, let's get this neighborhood, let's get this restaurant, let's get this cafe. And then it's like, wait a minute, we've got a lot of storage, but not as much output.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say in 2023, it's the best time because people like the one locked off shot. Like I don't know how long this trend will go, but like they just want a locked off shot and it's 18, 20 seconds long. And you either
okay.
just talk for 10 seconds, 20 seconds. It's short form. I'm talking about short form content too. Like you don't need a lot of edits. You could even just show your face and then show a B-roll shot. Like that's 2 edits.
Yeah. Like, do you think that, I mean, I know it comes in like trends and cycles and things like that, but do you think even like long form conversation like this, and by long form, I mean like within 20 minutes, whereas like you got Rogan who's doing 3 hours, which is nuts, but like, do you think people with all the short form and the trends of like, YouTube shorts and Instagram reels under 60 seconds, are people even going to be like interested in like a 10-minute, 15-minute conversation?
I think it's hard to grow on YouTube because hold on, my camera died. I was hit record again. I think it's hard to grow on YouTube because it's just right now in 2024, it's just so saturated. Every business and every guru is telling people to start a YouTube channel. So there's like billions of people joining YouTube right now, and it's very hard. You're gonna have to just it's a long growth. So if you're not building short form with that growth, it's gonna be even harder. So if you want to have the long form, I think you need the short form goes hand in hand to grow. Um,
Yeah.
because of the attention span right now, like you said, it's like people have that hard, they have an attention span shorter than a goldfish. So it's hard.
Yeah, I
So.
mean the endless scroll, just scroll, scroll, scroll. It's like the amount that goes into this for someone to just be like, boop, next.
Hmm. And then that's where you're thinking about. That's why if you are making content, you want to go, how do I make this as easy as possible without spending so much time? Because then it's about volume and repetition. And to me, it's like if you keep showing up, that's just a numbers game, and
Yeah.
you just keep showing up. You're always going to be on the feed. Your brand's going to be your podcast, your brand, your real estate company is always going to pop up. My media company is always popping up, and I think like the hack for that is I post a lot of stories. I don't actually make a lot of reels, but I'm posting stories like relentlessly. And,
Yeah.
I've actually I don't have 5,000 followers. I have less than 3,000, but I've literally built a business on posting stories every single day because 50, 80, 90 people watch my stories and I get direct business from my stories. I post me going to the grocery stores or a camera store. Somebody comments, I talk to them. I got all these conversations. I use Instagram sort of like a CRM. I'm using it like I'll post a story, people will engage, I'll talk to them. I keep talking to them. I'm now building a relationship in my DMs. And then eventually that turns into work. And that's built my business. I shit you not, dude. That's literally my last 5 years is me posting a story and somebody hitting me up. Or the next one would be a referral. And then the third one would be like a pitch where we've generated our own leads. So there's the business side of things. If you want to get in the business side of things, I'm super into that.
Yeah, talk about that for creative collective media. I got the tongue twister
Yeah.
right this time. Yeah, what was it like going from just editor to now business owner and leader, and what is that muscle like?
Yeah, I started becoming a leader in post production. I started off as an editor, and then I was an assistant editor, then an editor, and then I had a team of video editors. And I ran a entire video department. We finished shows for Amazon, Disney, Fox, Netflix, Hulu. We were a vendor for the studios, and it was for television. We did a lot of distribution, so I was forced to lead in that situation. So when I came into business, the transition came very natural as like, hey, I now have to direct people because I came from post production, which is leadership, and so like starting a business, it was just kind of a natural transition, but. Obviously there was no money in the beginning, and there's still no money in the beginning. It's very hard to grow a business, and we're still grinding, David.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, like,
Yeah.
okay, when
So
you were grinding at 23 years old, what was like your quote unquote big break in the editing world?
I was an assistant first, and then I was just shadowing and sleeping in the studio in my car. I was kind of like homeless for a little bit, and then I was just kind of crashing in the studio. I didn't go to film school. I had three amazing mentors as editors, and I would just stay late at night, hang out with them. I would just immerse myself in editing, and there was like a music video that none of the editors could cut or edit, and then they gave me a stab, cut it overnight. Next morning, they're like, cool, you can edit. Now you're an editor. We're going to pay you. So that was sort of the big break. And I mean, now I got paid a little bit of money, it wasn't much, but this was like in 2000, I would say 2005. And then, yeah, it sort of snowballed from there. I was just kind of going up the ranks and just getting better and better. I was just naturally good at it because I was a musician at first. And so editing that timeline kind of made sense for me because I was kind of already kind of making my own songs on the computer. So that sort of made sense. I knew a little bit of graphic design with Photoshop. And I've always been an artist. So all of that stuff sort of made sense. As kids, we're like, it looks like Legos to me. Like editing looks like Legos, and that's what the sort of the foundation is for me. But yeah, I
Okay.
mean, like going into my own business is still tough because now I left my Hollywood job that was paying really well to start my own business, and so I went bankrupt. I lived with my parents again at 38. did that whole thing, and we started the business with $500, and we just kept kind of grinding. And man, it really is about just like relationships. So like the content is just, if we go back to content, the content is just like the carrot that gets you in the door, that gets people to stop and to look at you. But you don't get the business transaction or the relationship, or the sale without the interaction. At least that's what I have built my business on.
How do we know content creation is not just a fad? Like my worry is like by the time we get good at this, what if people, like you said, attention span of a goldfish? What if they just go and decide that, hey, you know what? That era of being on our phones all day, every day, it's over. Let's go back outside.
I don't really think about that. Like I think about the now, and if it is a fad, does it matter? And if it is a fad, who cares? And if you like it, and if it's a fad, who cares? Either way, like you like what you like, David. Like you know what I mean. Like it doesn't matter. Like I don't care if it's a fad. I like it. It matters
Yeah,
if
you're
you
right.
like it. If you're enjoying yourself is really what the main reason. The main question you should be asking is like, am I having fun? If not, then screw this. I'm doing something else. And that's always been my gauge for things. Like me and my business partner's model is, in fact, anytime I take on a new client, my onboarding process is, if you and I do not click as people and we're not having fun, I'm not taking your money.
Yeah, it's a good way to
I'm
do
kind
it.
of a snob.
No, but like so much of this, like you said, in order to be your best, most genuine self, like it's like you have to be able to like be comfortable with whoever you're working with. And so like in order to like output and get like the best version of you, I would imagine you have to like work with people that you really vibe with.
Well, look, you're your own business, David. Like you started it. Why did you start your own business? Why did you become a realtor? To be your own boss. For entrepreneurs, we are like the punk rock a bit of like whatever life is, right? Like we don't want authority. We started
Yeah.
our own business. We said fuck you to the man. I'm not doing the 9 to 5. Your parents got upset. My parents got upset. They're like, what are you doing? You're still like, I want to be my own boss. So um your boundaries are your boundaries, and one of our boundaries is, we'll fire you if we don't get along. Like that's just, it's like I've fired $6,000 clients. I'm sure you've fired people in the real estate business, right? Like there's probably some nightmare clients that you've dealt with where you're like, look, I may not be for you. We may not fit your vibe. So at this point in
Yeah.
our lives, I think, especially in 2024, like people should be doing what they want to do.
What about gear?
Oh,
Any
that's
like
the
just
least
for the
one.
starter?
That's the least exciting part of content creation. Everybody gets so
Yeah.
wrapped up in the gear too.
Oh,
And to
yeah,
me,
I
it's
did.
like,
I for
look,
sure did.
yeah, to me, it's about like, I'll give you this analogy. If you put Brad Pitt in front of an iPhone and made him act, it would rock. And you see what I'm saying? Like the gear doesn't matter. It really doesn't, dude. Like have a good mic, make sure they can see you, and then call it a day.
I love it.
If you want to
So
set
simple. I
design
mean,
and you like set designing, do it. Like, if that makes you happy, you should do it. If the gear makes you happy, geek out on gear. But if you don't like to me, it's like I just need the shot, and like I just have a natural eye for it, right? Like I'm an
yeah.
artist, so I have composition, I have lighting, and I spend 10 seconds, maybe
Okay.
15 minutes, maybe 15 minutes to start to set it up, but then like cool, I'm done. Like at some point you can only dick around for until you're like, okay, this is enough, we're good, let's start. So like getting hooked up in gear, I think is a rookie thing, and I was guilty of it when I first started. But then I realized like, cool, the gear is good enough, let's improve on this, like the interaction, because that's going to sell, that's going to translate to the screen. People are going to feel things, and I would honestly focus on that first and then the gear after. So focus on making you a better performer, because that's essentially sort of what you're doing. You're performing on camera.
All right. Before we wrap up, Robert, last question. Growing the audience. I think a lot of people think that, like, again, it goes back to like getting all stiff. And I think people sometimes are too salesy when they try to grow the audience and it's not organic. So any tips on how to properly grow an audience in the most natural way?
So to grow the audience, you're basically trying to problem solve their problems and make it about them. So if you're a real estate agent, you're basically creating content about how they buy a home or the best places to eat, like what David does. So if you're making content for people that they can use as value, then people start trusting you, and then your brand starts to become a brand that people can gravitate to, and that's where people follow you. Like, people don't follow me because I'm too random, and I kind of make content for myself. So don't do as I do, but do as I say. So like most of the time, people are like me, and my content is all me because it's like Rob. It's basically, I use Instagram as a documentation of my life. Don't do that. You can do a little bit of that, but if you're trying to actually grow it as a business, make content to solve problems. And if you do that and you're authentic and you're real and you show the ups and you show the downs, and you're not perfect, people love that. Especially right now, authenticity rules and perfection is out the door.
Yeah, you taught me that one of the first times I met you, you were like, yeah, we were all going to wear suit and ties and dress up. And we decided now we're just going to wear sweatpants and t-shirts
Yeah.
because it like intimidates. Sometimes it's like too stiff.
Well, also, last thing is, like, you don't want it to look like an ad. We're trained so much right now as the consumer to swipe from ads. We're just getting bombarded by ads so much. So so that's why phone content and lo-fi content is, right. They call it lo-fi content. It's really trendy now. The no edits are really trendy on YouTube. Like right now, if you go to Think Media, they're talking about no edits. Like, don't do edits, because the fumbles actually make you real. It's like, it doesn't look like an ad. And if you're even paying attention, some ads are lo-fi right now. So if you look on TikTok, a lot of these ads are like someone on their phone, and there's companies paying a lot of money to shoot people on their phone. I've actually transitioned a lot of my clients on phone content because I don't want it to look like an ad. This is 2024. Wow. I don't know what will happen next year, but that's like, if the bar is very low for content right now. Like, people love this lo-fi crap.
Yeah, it's like the second I finally learned how to use CapCut. Now we don't want edits. Damn it.
But it still works, dude. Honestly, it still boils down. If you're awesome on camera, that still holds true till the beginning of media. So like, it's all about the person behind it. Like, if you think about media in the beginning, radio, it didn't even have picture, dude. It's all about the voice. So honestly, if your voice works, and then now your presentation here works, you've already got two things working for you. So everything else is just like highlights. Set design is highlights. The fancy gear are highlights. But if you get your voice and your intonation and your energy up, and your visual presentation and your body language is good, you're already pretty good.
All this is solid advice, man. I appreciate it, man. Really, solid wisdom. This has been awesome. Where can people find you, Robert?
Just follow me on Instagram, Robert Condell.
Fantastic. This was great. I love talking to you. I love picking your brain. I always love getting advice from you on this subject. It's always fun and fascinating, especially to talk to a master like yourself. So I can't thank you enough for being here. Really, it's been exciting having you here. Me and Paul are geeking out right now. We're gonna be like, oh man, we're gonna step it up on this plant right here. We're gonna fix that. But in all seriousness, I really can't thank you enough, Robert. It's been great.
Well,
and before you leave, I must thank you and say thank you for being one of the Vegas Faces.
Thanks, David.
Thank you for subscribing to Vegas Faces on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok under the name Gavri Group. That's Gavri Group. Thanks, everybody. See you at the next episode.